Hey, it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. We are focusing in on why love is such a dirty word to a narcissist. Why you seem to be in such opposition. Why there seems to be so much conflict consciousness that surrounds this relationship. Why it's so difficult to let go, and why it's so difficult to establish boundaries, your own foundation, your own identity and your own perspective. Why it's so difficult to embrace that when you're working through and healing through a very difficult and complex, sometimes confusing relationship with a narcissist or a psychopathic individual. And I just want to give a quick shout out to those viewers who have recently donated to me. I want to thank you really from my heart. Thank you so much, because it really does help validate the work that I'm doing and helps let me know that I am making a positive impact. And that is the whole goal of the channel, is to help fill that space, help fill that void. There's such a gap in terms of healthcare and support and understanding and knowledge when it comes to really effectively healing through these sort of difficult relationships that can become emotionally abusive in nature. It can really kind of stunt people's personal growth, and there's not a lot of information about how to work through it effectively. And it's my goal to produce and provide those results to you. So I want to thank you so much for your donations to this channel and help keeping this alive. We want to focus in here on why essentially love is such a dirty word, or why you feel so shamed, why you feel so disempowered, why you feel so inferior around this narcissist or psychopathic individual. And it's not necessarily feeling inferior as it is a feeling that you're underneath, or that you're under their control, or you're under their dominion, or you're under their control and influence. In a way that is not comfortable, in a way that is not what I call empowering for you, a way that is not validating to you. And realize that oftentimes it is the narcissist, which has the ego by virtue of their character disorder, needs to be fed. Their ego needs to be fed, and it needs to come from somewhere. So it needs to come from an individual who we are now establishing in the role, very much like the role in an employer, is in the role of a supply. You are in the role of helping enable them. And so when we talk about enabling in the psychological community, it is you are permitting basically that to perpetuate, or that to continue. So when we talk about enabling, for example, we hear about enabling of alcoholics. So there might be someone in their circle of influence, or their family, or their peer group, who enables them to continue their alcoholism. In other words, they make excuses for them. They turn a blind eye when they're sneaking alcohol in the garage, or in the closet, or in the golf bag. And, they kind of know that they're kind of creeping into the basement to get their couple shots of drinks before they come up for the rest of the evening. They're enabling it. They're turning a blind eye. They're not able to confront it. They're not able to call it out. They're not able to bring it out in the open. So in essence, that is really what happens when you are in a relationship with a narcissist. You tend to, if you don't have the tools or the raised awareness to deal with it and confront it and kind of manage it successfully, you become, in essence, a quote-unquote supply, a quote-unquote target, the individual whom they are using to enable that narcissist personality disorder to continue to flourish. And it does get worse with time. It does become more pronounced with time. It becomes more rigid with time. And it's because the narcissist personality disorder does not, by virtue of their character disorder, they do not feel that they have done anything wrong. They do not see their shortcoming. They have a sense of righteousness. They have a sense of haughtiness. They have a sense of arrogance that, this is just how I am. This is who I am. And, if I have to exploit others, if I have to abuse others, if I have to use others as supply to continue this, well, that's okay with me. It's in essence, it's all about feeding them. and feeding the ego and basically being a support to them versus being your own person in your own right. And it's that really that perspective that I want you and I need you to understand is very important for you to have even in the presence of this toxic individual, because they are going to perpetuate that role for you as enabler, as supply, in essence, to continue that shaming, to continue that, those messages to you that you are, dot, 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 dot. And because it is for them to solidify that relationship for you in the marriage or the family system, or if it's an employer, they're going to solidify and reinforce that relationship. In essence, love, or you being yourself, you being your authentic self, you being empowered, you owning your truth, which is really, when you come right down to it, when we talk about opening up questions, those open-ending questions that get you to embrace and really understand your internal voice, which has been shut down really by this individual, emotionally asphyxiated, basically stifled, shut off, not allowed to grow, not allowed to live, not allowed to speak, not allowed to really come out into the world, if you will. It's created really kind of a muffled, expression, and you might hear like a little bit of glimpse of it. So it's really that kind of unearthing and that brushing off of the dirt that we want to kind of help it breathe and help it grow and help it make its way and kind of untangle from the ensnared roots, which are trying to really keep it from opening up and living in the world. And so when I talk about love is a dirty word, it's as if you're almost scolded, as if you are shamed really into being the person that you are. And so because you have to realize that the narcissist, they're going to condemn you for being the person that you are because you are a threat to their ego. In other words, the narcissist needs to maintain that hierarchy. They need to maintain that they have a superior sense of self as it comes into relation with their inner circle. Their inner dynamics within the family, the relationship, the workplace. They very much want to, keep it forefront and center that, they are, this individual person, and you are an underling, you are support, you are there just only to validate their ego, and you're not allowed to receive in return. So it's very important to understand that if this has been going on chronically, if this has been going on for months, years, decades, and this treatment has now become internalized within you, and this now you have now accepted this role, you have accepted this reality, you have accepted these erroneous, hurtful messages. As you internalize these messages then become a mood, and this mood then is reinforced through your thought pattern and your belief in yourself, and is then there's a kind of reconnecting circle within the self. I am less than, I am horrible, I am not good enough. All the messages that they tell you. You should be so ashamed of yourself, you are impossible, whatever, all the erroneous, hurtful messages that they instilled in you, that because children are like a sponge, they soak it up. And they are basically their environment until they get the knowledge, the awareness, and the consciousness. Otherwise, basically, they are their awareness. They are not separate from. They are that. And so, especially if you've received that message as a child, those messages then become your thoughts and your emotions, and then your belief about yourself, and this becomes a pervasive mood, and then a mood becomes an identity. And then you then carry this out into the world. So it's like this, rippling system throughout the various layers of your being. So in essence, that love is a dirty word. You become, quote unquote, dirty, defiled, shamed, inferior, less than. You become lambasted with all the hurtful messages, and they basically condemn you for being a person. They condemn you for having your personal voice, which is what we want to, create this sacred space in your little garden, basically, of yourself, because you have a soil within, if you will. You have an emotional soil. You have a place with which your identity is trying to come out basically not this injured identity, which is established by the narcissist. There's a true, actual, empowered identity, which we're trying to give life to and give the space, the nourishment, the soil for it to be able to live. And we need to give it the nutrients and basically the affirmations, the emotional life, the emotional richness, the emotional validation that we need, through our affirmations, through the emotional emphasis behind it, and through the belief and the trust underneath to give it a chance to flourish and become identified, which is really your truth. And understanding really the cause. And I know that this is a little bit of a long video, but hang in there. If you need to kind of take an intermission, stop the video, get something to drink. I know it's like a lot of information, but I just want to kind of like roll with it, and then, you can come back. But understand that the narcissist will hurt emotionally those others who are in direct opposition to them, because if you don't quote unquote validate or serve or their ego, and if you because it's all about them in a pathological sense, meaning not normal, meaning disordered, they have a weakness, they have an insecurity, they have an inability, which is empathy. They have an inability, they have a shortcoming. There's, a certain part of their personality by virtue of the brain centers and the regions in the brain. They have a deficit. They are not able to empathize with others. So you might experience this. You kind of always felt like you didn't fit in, or they don't get you, or you feel very isolated and alone when you're around them. It's because they're lacking this empathy. They're not really present. They're not really kind of on the same emotional vibration. They're in their pathological selfishness. And so it all has to be one way to them. And that becomes very exhausting. And so that's really why you then become reacting to them, always having to kind of like live according to their values. You're not allowed to identify, know, live, and basically reinforce your own values. You kind of feel like you have to adopt their values, their mask, and even if it's not beneficial to you, even if it causes like a lot of judgment, criticism, things of that nature, you then feel really kind of like uncomfortable around it, and you feel that there's more to life and there's more to you, yet you can't really become it, live it, express it around this person. You feel very stunted, stifled, and that's because the narcissist has to really reinforce that ego feed. And basically they perceive you as a threat because it exposes their weakness or their insecurity, and this is unconsciously not doable for the narcissist. They will create what they call a defense mechanism, which is insultory, derogatory to you, the excessive criticism, the what we call negative validation, validating all these negative things about you, which have nothing to do with reality, but yet they need to continue and perpetuate that to keep that down, which keeps you basically from confronting them or living an empathic life, a sensitive life, and an aware life that has values and opinion and feelings of its own, and that own richness. They're not able to really kind of exist around that. They're not able to take that in because it's a threat to their ego. And I'm just reading through the notes that I made here for this video. And so shaming is the experience of projection. So when a narcissist projects, they're projecting their insecurities onto you. So you're then meant to embody that shame. You're then meant to embody those hurt feelings. And as we're saying, this becomes then a mood, which then if that continues over time, that becomes an identity. So your identity is in a direct reaction to this individual and that they have projected onto you. And the feeling of being shamed, like John Bradshaw says in Healing the Shame That Binds You, shame is the feeling of being inherently flawed. So narcissists will kind of work that, and then it becomes really kind of reinforced. Then, that inherently flawed feeling, which is you'll feel that every time you go around this person. It's what we call habituated. It's it's repeated so many times that it becomes like an automatic. It becomes an unconscious. This wound, it becomes like a living wound. So you feel that around this person, and then they basically like to trigger that. Because if they can get you to be wounded, they can get you to to feel bad about yourself, and then you're living in reaction. You're living in their energy. So it's very important to declare a very clean-cut distinction between the woundedness of the narcissist and your healthy self, your integrity being. Integrity means whole, complete. It means really, of a value. When we talk about it in integrity, it means that which can't be broken. There's an integrity when we talk about like integrity to a vehicle. It's sound, it's secure, and of sound values. So in other words, it's based in love. It's based in self-acceptance. It's based in understanding of the inherent value you have as an individual, in the inherent rights you have as an individual, and basically, your needs, your healthy needs, which have been probably defiled and, made to feel like they weren't true, or, your needs were wrong for needing emotional validation and support, I mean, it's what we call negative validation. You've been validated in a negative way. So, and I'm going to kind of pick up this on another video because I know that this gets lengthy. And so this is what we know as the deep emotional wound, really as a result of those narcissistic relationships. And so realize that those wounds that is the cause, really. And then what you're experiencing is the effect. And we are going to be addressing in the videos how to really separate yourself from the cause that has created this deep wound, so it's no longer carried in your being, because it is that raised awareness. It is those tools which creates the leverage, which we mean basically the power, the handle, the latch. It creates the leverage within your being to basically pry that off and, set that free and have that go back to its source. And then you then become the cause, and you then become aware of the perspective that you need to have and carry into the world that is separate from really those erroneous, wrong, hurtful messages inflicted from a narcissist to serve their needs and not to serve yours. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.